Saw it last night, really enjoyed it. It was dark, it was weird, it was funny, and I just want to commend you on a job well done.
Oh man, that's so cool of you to say. Thanks again.
Yeah, sure. So, how did the film originally come about?
Well, see, the election had happened, right? And I was watching the news with my wife, and I actually just sort of asked her, what scares you the most in the world right now? And she just kind of turned to me and blankly said, old men.
Okay.
So I took that, and I sort of went in the corner, and I was trying to devise a film that kind of, existed in this heightened reality so that it sort of still had this sense of like midnight movie escapism. Mm-hmm. You weren't bogged down in sort of what we're dealing with outside of the cinema, but still dealt with certain important things. And what intrigued me, like, structurally, was this notion of, I've been listening to so much music lately because, music is so exciting because there's no tools, right? Like, you can have a bass stick and a rock and roll album. It's been around so much longer than film. And I've been taking all these meetings, one after another, where you sort of have to pitch a script that exists within this framework of, 5 or 6 structures. Mm-hmm. So I got to thinking that we could make a film and approach it as if it was like a song, as if we're sampling, right? Like it's almost like sort of a dance track or a hip-hop album, and create like a narrative through line with the story, but sample 3 different genres sort of in even increments. So it sort of goes from coming of age story to slasher horror to absurdist comedy, and in equal doses, which was inspired by, certainly right now with the climate. Over the course of 24 hours, I feel like I'm living in 20 movies.
Cool. Now I'm curious. The cast is great. It's just a great crew. What was the casting process like?
Well, a handful of them are sort of my tried and true, actors that I've worked with before, like Ray Wise, Ray Santiago, and Annalyn McCord, and Ronnie James Levins, et cetera, et cetera. And then with Harvey and Olive, Amanda, I love Silicon Valley. It's one of my favorite shows. And with Robert, X-Files is my favorite show of all time. So Agent Doggett, all day. Yeah. And I'm so interested with the idea of the whole movie. The idea is that everyone is full of shit. We're all, and that's sort of the common ground. Once we sort of admit that to ourselves. I didn't want an actor that was just going to make fun of Harvey. Even though he is our sort of villain narratively, I wanted someone that was a little bit, maybe not as liberal-leaning as I am, to sort of embrace the character. And Robert, has a few sort of more conservative viewpoints than me, and he was just fantastic. Like, I'm super close with him now. He's just a really good guy. But as you can see from the film, he really delved in, and we had so much fun. Pitting these 2 characters right against each other, where Harvey is done growing, he's stopped growing, he's open to nothing, and then you've got this girl who's open to everything because she doesn't know who she is, right? She's figuring that out, So just pairing these 2 characters, and Olive doesn't even know she's in a horror movie until the 3rd act.
Right.
Sort of. And that was kind of the idea that, until this election, there's been all these problems, and that everyone's ignored, and now everyone's finally sort of becoming a participant in their own life. The way Olive sort of, becomes after she sort of steps outside of her bubble.
Right.
But,
and
yeah.
And in a way, the fact that she has no idea that she's terrible at playing the piano that's kind of like some of the people who live in this country, how they ignore the fact that we live in this government right now that's just awful. So it's kind of some parallels
really
there.
Serving anyone with all the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I tried to take as many things like that and without being too super on the nose with them, deal with it story-wise, but then with the dialogue and the way the characters talk, I also wanted this film to sort of exist as a cultural artifact, right? To be something like really fascinating and strange to watch 5 or 10 years from now. And it's like, wow, what the fuck is going on then? And so, from the internet and from Facebook and all these things, subtlety is dead. So the idea was that there is no more subtlety. People don't speak like this, and so everyone's dialogue is in your face. Even the villain. The idea was that everyone wants to be heard so much. Presumably with a horror movie, right? There's going to be a younger audience in the theater, and so I said, God, Harvey wouldn't let the screen confine him. He would chastise the audience. So, which was just another fun sort of midnight movie trick in the, sort of our William Castle moments, if you will, right? Where Harvey turns to the screen and starts chastising it's not enough that it's just Olive, it's all of you.
So you would say that this is a political message wrapped up in a horror bow?
I would say that it's a social satire, right? And the message is, it's more about the generational gap than being too overtly political, but it's certainly about the discord in America right now. Absolutely.
Right. Interesting. I'm curious. Were any other actors considered for the role of Harvey?
Were any other actors considered for the role of Harvey? Well, Robert was my first choice, and when we didn't, you know how it is when you go out to an actor, you have several meetings, and they make you create like a list. So I had a list of other backups, but thank God, Robert and I ended up bonding enough where we do it, and frankly, the movie exists because of him, because I had already lost this movie once. My movies, there's these tonal shifts in all of them, and we don't really play by any rules. We kind of do our best to sort of break every one of them. And without people like Robert Patrick, jumping on board, a movie like this can't get made. It can't exist. Right.
Well, thankfully it got made. It's great. And I'm curious, what are you working on previously? Is there any projects you can talk about now?
Well, yeah. So I'd written this pagan comedy, and no one would finance it, and I really loved it. And my friend Matthew Gray Gubler is this actor on Criminal Minds.
Right.
Read it, and he loved it, and we just said sort of, what, fuck it, let's just go make it. So we are self-financing it, shooting it in just under a month from now, at our own houses and at various friends' houses and everywhere. And we just sort of get sick of these filmmakers that have, infinitely more money than me complaining they can't get their dream projects made. It's sort of you can get anything made. If I waited for the perfect situation to make one of my movies, I wouldn't have one movie.
Yeah, I know all about that. I fund my show myself. It's all me. I write it, I produce it, I have it edited. So I feel your pain there, sir.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's crazy too, because there's more content than ever. But I take all these meetings and there's more rules than ever. You would think because of the sheer quantity of content, they'd be more open to sort of experimentation with structure and tone and theme. But no, things have become more rigid, or at least at the moment.
And Ricky, speaking to that, there really is very little originality left in Hollywood. You have these Fast and Furious, Godzilla, Marvel. So it's refreshing to see a movie like Tone Deaf because it really is very original and it's very, very interesting. So thank you for that.
Well, that's so kind of you to say, man. That's that's all. That's the name of the game. I'm sort of committed to I guess money be damned. I'm trying to create sort of a catalog of as original work as I can.
Yeah.
Should I live long enough, I can look back on it and feel like we did something. Yeah,
man, it's cool. And you know what? If you're ever in Long Island, New York, we'd love to have you maybe stop by the studio for an in-person interview if you're available.
Oh, absolutely, man. I went to school in New York. I love New York. I lived
okay. Are you from here originally?
No, I actually grew up in the South. I grew up in Virginia.
Okay, cool. Well, the door is always open at Under the Radar.
Right on. Well, thanks again for talking to me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love the film. Thanks so much, Ricky, and best of luck with everything.